I will be presenting a study on the determinants of judgment and decision-making processes, and what contributes to their overall quality. Dual process decision models have typically regarded that informational processing styles are primarily individualized and one of the sole reasons why some people differ in decision and judgment quality. However, there is rising evidence that intuitive thinking has many benefits from its adaptation, such as improving moods, reducing cognitive load, and enhancing athletic performance. But despite these benefits, scholars still denote that intuitive thinking should be avoided in most situations, as it can promote many cognitive fallacies that can diminish intellect and workplace performance. To add to these notions, a recent article written by Shahar Ayal and colleagues states that inducing an analytical mode of thought can further improve decision quality. This is necessary research as it highlights the importance of separate ways of thinking and how different styles of forming judgments and decisions can be beneficial depending on the situation. It also gives a way to rethink how we see typical thought patterns and why it is crucial to have the skill to differentiate between intuitive thinking and analytical thinking. Two experiments were conducted for this study that aimed to highlight the differences in the two distinct cognitive mechanisms, otherwise known as intuitive and analytical thinking. The first experiment aimed to examine how individual differences in processing styles affect the quality of people's decisions. In contrast, the second experiment was designed to test the compatibility hypothesis and determine whether the effect of the two thinking modes on decision quality was contingent on the nature of the task. The first experiment's participants consisted of 81 undergraduate students from the IDC of Herzliya, with a mean age of 25.9 and a standard deviation of 2.71. The procedure used for the first experiment was a 2x2 between participants design. The experimental approach was also comprised of 3 stages. The first stage consisted of a 24-item rational experiential inventory questionnaire to assess individuals' tendencies to include analytical and intuitive considerations in their decision-making processes. The second stage of the experiment consisted of a mode of thought manipulation, which aimed to get participants to think carefully and logically about their choices when responding to the questionnaire provided. The third stage aimed to assess decision quality among the other 2 stages. The third stage consisted of 6 prototypical questions used to examine the adherence to biased thinking and whether participants could think adaptively and consistently. As for the second experiment, the participants consisted of 40 undergraduate students comprised of 32 females and 8 males, with a mean age of 22.6 years and a standard deviation of 1.84 from the same institution as the previous experiment. The experimental procedure was made up of 2 stages. The first stage consisted of the mode of thought manipulation, which was identical to the mode of thought manipulation in stage 2 of experiment 1. The second stage of the experiment consisted of the multiplication face assessment task, where in both conditions participants were told to choose multiplications that looked larger and a face that looked nicer. The 28 pairs of multiplications and faces were presented to participants in random order, following the initial instructions. Shortly after the presentation of each pair, participants were to provide a reason as to why they marked the pairs of multiplication larger and the faces they perceived as more likable, which allowed for further discussion in the results section. The results of experiment 1 highlighted the relationship between the thinking mode and the quality of decisions. Through a simultaneous regression analysis, the results displayed that the overall model was significant, as seen in Table 1. This result suggested that in this task, asking people to provide a more analytical decision resulted in fewer biases than asking them to give a more intuitive response. As for the results of experiment 2, the author's findings supported the compatibility hypothesis, that decision quality depends on the compatibility between the dominant thinking mode used for making decisions and the nature of the task. And inducing a more analytical mode in the participants led to more consistency and thus to better decisions when the task will require more analytical skills. This is seen in Table 2. This pattern of results supports that individual differences in analytical processing styles affect the quality of decisions. As for the general strengths of the experiment, it has high validity within its practices and does contribute to the larger pool of knowledge on informational processing styles. But also, it does highlight that analytical ways of thinking can help improve the quality of judgments and decisions. However, one of the main problems with this study is that it lacks to show the benefits of intuitive thinking, as it is solely focusing on highlighting the importance of analytical thinking. To fix this issue, the authors should not simply characterize intuitive thinking as a faulty cognitive process, and rather should be reconsidered for its benefits. In conclusion, this study has shown that enhancing people's analytical processing style within specific tasks can indeed help improve the quality of people's judgments and decisions, which can help prevent people from falling into particular forms of cognitive distortions. As for the future, we need to look more into the combination of both informational processing styles, as it is necessary to highlight the importance of being able to use different formats of thinking to complete certain tasks. Having the ability to rethink and to be adaptive under specific situations can also be immensely beneficial to mental health. Thank you for listening.